Welcome to Anti-Fiction. This is a weekly nonfiction podcast where each week a theme is chosen, and I, Christian Yates, am joined by two guest hosts to discuss stories about that theme. My guest hosts this week are stand-up comedian and my brother, Matt Yates.
Hello, everybody.
And artist and illustrator, Sammi Davis.
Hello, hello.
So the theme this week is heroes. So we've all brought stories about a hero of some kind, hopefully.
Somewhat loosely tying into the theme of the show.
Loose is fine. So I'll get started. I'll go ahead and read mine. Steve Buscemi was born...
I love it already.
On December 13th, 1957, in Brooklyn, New York, to John and Dorothy Buscemi. John was a Korean War veteran working in sanitation, and Dorothy worked as a hostess at Howard Johnson's. Steve Buscemi attended Valley Stream Central High School. Go Eagles. That's for our Nassau County listeners out there. So he attended Valley Stream Central High, where he was on the varsity wrestling team and participated in the drama troupe. Here's a fun fact about Valley Stream, by the way. I looked up to see if there were any other famous alumni from there. Comedian Fred Armisen of Portlandia fame went to that high school, but they didn't meet. He graduated in 84, which was like 9 years after Steve Buscemi. Right. So I don't think, probably they didn't know each other. That would be a cooler story. No, it wouldn't. This is a pretty cool one. He graduated in 1975, and a year later he took his civil service test after his dad encouraged him to take it. So his dad worked in sanitation, and so he's like, go do something in some kind of civil service, like your old man. He briefly attended Nassau Community College before enrolling in the Lee Strasberg Theater and Film Institute. In 1980, he became a firefighter with the Fire Department of New York's Engine Company 55 in Manhattan's Little Italy, which is located in southern Manhattan, or lower Manhattan, or whatever they say
One
there.
of the Manhattans.
One of the Manhattans. the southern portion of Manhattan, near Chinatown and Tribeca. He worked for Engine Company 55 for 4 years before he began acting in movies such as The Way It Is, which was his film debut. That was in 1985. He was also in Reservoir Dogs, Con Air, Armageddon, The Big Lebowski, Fargo, and as the voice of Randall in Monsters, Inc. He also was in basically any movie that Adam Sandler was doing at the time. If you've ever seen an Adam Sandler movie, you've seen Steve Buscemi as like a homeless guy in the background or something. He said, so the other firefighters thought that he was crazy for not wanting to keep being a firefighter, and instead pursue this crazy dream of going off to Hollywood. So they thought he was crazy, and he said, quote, "Nobody leaves this job. You just don't. You don't leave. First of all, a great job like this, and then a secure job." So acting, as we know, entertainment is not a secure job field.
By any means at all, no.
No. So they thought he was crazy for trying to leave. But Steve Buscemi's illustrious acting career is not what makes him a hero. That's not why he is featured on this episode.
It's not?
Surprisingly. I know. I could have probably just gone through all of his film and television work and, mentioned his award-worthy performance in Boardwalk Empire. But these are not the reasons that Steve Buscemi is a hero. Here's why. On September 11th, 2001, the World Trade Center was attacked, and Steve Buscemi came back the next day to New York to rejoin Engine Company 55. And for a week, he assisted the other firefighters in sifting through the rubble, pulling 12-hour shifts alongside them. He refused to do interviews or have his picture taken, and said, quote, "It was a privilege to be able to do it, and it was enormously helpful for me because while I was working, I didn't really think about it as much, feel it as much. It wasn't until I stopped that I really felt the full impact of what had happened." So on April the 7th, 2003, New York Mayor Michael Bloomberg, who is, he's sort of the villain of this story.
As every, hero story needs.
Right. It's unfair for me to say that because I don't know anything about Michael Bloomberg's other politics. I know the politics that I'm about to tell you. And that's about it. Michael Bloomberg, if you're listening to this podcast, I have no ill will against you, no hard feelings, but you're Steve Buscemi's arch nemesis. So on April 7th, 2003, Mayor Michael Bloomberg announced that 8 firehouses in New York would be closing, although interestingly, the firehouse that was like a block or two away from his Upper Manhattan apartment, or house, I don't know, would not be closing.
Of course not.
Right.
That'd be ridiculous.
So that got kind of brought up a lot in the media, and City Council spokesperson Yvette Clark said, quote, "It definitely raises the question of resources and allocation of resources." So, are we shutting down these ones in these, like, less well-off communities, but we're not shutting down this one in the nice community? So, but Mayor Bloomberg said, quote, "We're not losing any firefighters, we're just transferring the firefighters." He claimed that this cut, the closure of these 8 firehouses, would save the city $8 million, and it would only add an extra minute to response times. One of the firehouses that was scheduled to close was Engine Company 204 in Brooklyn. Protesters gathered on May 25th, 2003, and 12 of them, including Steve Buscemi, our hero, locked arms and burst into the firehouse, locking firefighters in for 3 hours. Police finally got inside and dragged the protesters out in handcuffs, including, again, Steve Buscemi among them. But Steve Buscemi managed to hold up a picture of 9/11 hero firefighter Dave Fontana, who had died during the attack. Steve was highly critical of the city's claims that these closures would mean no more than 1 minute added to emergency response time. He said, quote, "If your house was on fire, would you wait 1 minute to call the fire department?" And that is fair. That's right. A fair assessment.
Right. Like, that's not crazy.
Right. Mm-hmm. Like, well, listen, the fire's going to burn an extra minute, but really the damage was already done, so we're just going to put it out. Your homeowner's insurance is going to take care of that. And that's it. Have a nice day.
What's 1 minute of flame on your precious memories and photos?
Right. You may have lost some irreplaceable things, but the city saved $8 million.
Yeah.
It also depends, like, is it a real minute, or is it like, when your girlfriend says it'll only take a minute?
It's probably a New York minute, which is actually really short.
Right. Oh, okay. Yeah. Good.
So in the end, the city council voted to not close the firehouses. They voted down the firehouse closings, but that didn't stop Mayor Bloomberg from putting the same proposal on the docket several times in later years. So New York Daily News published an article on March 7th, 2003, writer Aaron Durkin closes the article with this quote, and I think it's awesome. I think it's hilarious. So this particular year, 2013, Mayor Bloomberg was still mayor at this point. I believe this was right toward the end of his term, though. Bloomberg's proposed budget calls for shuttering 20 companies to save $59 million. He has made the same threat in past years, but the city council has blocked the closings every year. So, first of all, one of the reasons that's my favorite is that Aaron Durkin says that the mayor made the same threat. Not proposed the same idea, but made a threat. And this time he's gonna, and I understand that, like, I don't know what the adjusted for inflation is, but like between the 10 years, but 20 companies saving $59 million, the math does not check out there to me. When these 8 firehouses were gonna save $8 million, it sounds to me like $1 million a firehouse, right?
Or he's just been cherry picking like the really big ones.
There you go. He's like, nope, these are the ones we're going after this time. But it's like, I don't know his politics. He may have had other like policies where he was like budget cuts on other things. But he keeps coming back to the firehouses every single year. They vote him down and he goes, no. But hear me out. There are firehouses out there that are open and putting out fires. I don't know why. I'm like, maybe he just has a grudge against firefighters. I mean, to be fair, so he, some of the firefighters were for these closures. Steve Buscemi clearly was not. He said in one speech, like, we can never thank you enough, we could never pay you enough for the job that they do. But yeah, it's odd that he keeps coming back to the firehouses. I don't...
Right, I don't know if it's like a personal vendetta, like,
right.
You know, what... Did a fireman, like, kick him at some point as a child?
Yeah. Right, maybe his dad was a firefighter and he hated his dad. I don't know.
Seems odd to me.
Classic. You know, it's the villain trope, you know, hated his parents.
Yeah. Who has a good parent relationship if you're a hero?
Right. And I mean, like, the number of fire companies that he keeps proposing to close, it's a small number comparatively. I looked it up at this point in time anyway. I don't know what it looked like during these times if they've opened anymore, but at this point in time, right now, there are 218 firehouses in the greater New York area. That's a lot. But
well, you know, in my time as a mayor in my Sim City games, there's one thing I learned is that you need more firehouses than you think you do.
That's true. I sucked at that game. I couldn't. I was terrible at it. So anyway, so there's the comeuppance for the villain. The villain does not get his proposal put through to shutter all of these fire companies. So, you know, curse you, Steve Buscemi, as like the camera zooms out on his face, you know.
He would have gotten away with it too if it weren't for those meddling firefighters.
Yeah.
And Steve Buscemi.
So this is a good little ending, I feel like, for this story. On November the 6th, 2014, the Fire Department of New York Commissioner, Daniel Negro, swore in 5 honorary battalion chiefs, and among these was legendary actor and heroic firefighter Steve Buscemi.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
So he's an honorary battalion chief now for the Fire Department of New York. So in the end, the hero, you know, he got his medal of honor, and the villain did not succeed with his evil plans. Again, my apologies to Michael Bloomberg.
Right.
Yeah.
But, you know, there we have Steve Buscemi single-handedly taking down a potentially corrupt politician.
Yes.
You know?
Yeah. That's
I mean, who are you going to turn to in your time of need other than Steve Buscemi?
right. That's I think that's that song, right? Who are you gonna call?
Steve
Buscemi. Yeah. I think that's. I'm pretty sure that's how that went.
Yeah, that's how that goes.
All right. Well, so that's my story. That's my hero. So Sammi, would you like to share your story with us?
Yeah. All right. So when I was thinking about this topic, I was like, who was the first superhero? Like, there had to have been like the first point in time where somebody was like, all right, this is a superhero. And according to Wikipedia, there was somebody
Nice.
called Spring-Heeled Jack was listed as the first.
The first, like comic book superhero, or like
No.
some dude in a costume.
Some dude in a costume.
Some dude in a costume. All right. We've gone from Steve Buscemi to some dude in a costume. I love it already.
Yeah, if you go to the superhero debuts Wikipedia page, it lists Spring-Heeled Jack as the first superhero to debut in Spring-Heeled Jack, The Terror of London, which was a Penny Dreadful novel.
I'm sorry, hold on. The Terror of London?
Yes.
You said superhero.
Yeah, I did.
Okay.
All right, so Spring-Heeled Jack, the first sighting of him, some backstory here. First sightings of Spring-Heeled Jack occurred in 1837.
Okay.
Sightings were reported all over England, from London to Liverpool. Most of the sightings were in the suburbs of London, where victims described him as a gentlemanly devil who would ravage them with his
Oh my
claws.
God. Okay.
And who could leap great distances, hence the name Spring-Heeled Jack.
Well, that was Superman's shtick. That's,
Yeah.
that was, you could leap tall buildings in a single bound.
But
Spring-heel
I don't
Superman.
think ravaging people was ever Superman.
Yeah. I don't think Superman was ravaging anybody. Ravaging is a good word.
Maybe in his very early
Fantastic
days.
word.
Maybe in his early days, before he knew what he was doing. Anyway, so I know he doesn't sound like much of a superhero at
Not
this
so
point.
far. I'll be honest with you.
He definitely did not start out as a superhero, more than a sort of some folklore. Like, people would say they saw him and that he would spit blue fire out of his mouth while attacking.
Fire. Oh my God.
Okay.
He was said to...
Sure.
And so the first sighting was 1837.
And this was real life, though. So this
Yeah.
was real people really thinking that they saw the devil spit fire at
Well,
them.
I mean, people can take real drugs and
Yeah.
It's
see any
weird. The
kind
only
of thing.
Spring-Heeled Jack sightings that we're getting are from these, opioid heads. Like,
And he was ravaging people and spitting fire and all
Jumping.
this stuff, man. All right.
Yeah.
You meth head.
get out of here,
Anyway.
Charlie.
Right.
Yeah.
He was featured in a play by Josh Thomas Haynes in 1840, and then after that he was featured in those Penny Dreadful novels where it was called Spring-Heeled Jack, The Terror of London, or at least that's the earliest one that's still in existence today. He was described as wearing a white leather costume with a black cape and having devil horns.
I imagine devil horns. That checks out.
Yeah.
I
Well,
was
anytime you say like a gentlemanly devil, I admit I did Google it immediately. He's got his nice little Abraham Lincoln style top hat,
Yeah.
right? But yeah, definitely the devil horns. It's a nice touch.
Yeah. I know what you're thinking. It's like, this guy doesn't sound like a superhero.
no.
But in the Penny Dreadful novels, they did
It's a
turn
redemption
him,
arc.
Yeah.
It's a
what it is.
redemption arc.
Yeah, they
Okay.
turned
Every
him
hero needs
into they turned him into this disgraced noble figure who stole from the rich and gave to the poor, like Robin Hood.
Okay. All right.
So he was like.
So
a
he
Robin
was
Hood.
only ravaging rich people.
Yeah, yeah.
All right. Good.
Yeah.
That's something I can get
Ravage
behind.
the rich.
My apologies to any rich listeners.
Please send us your money.
Right, we certainly don't have any rich
Yeah,
podcasters.
if you're gonna, if you have any angry letters that you do want to send us about that, I completely understand. Just send a $20 bill with it.
It's the complaint fee.
for each letter that you want to send.
If you don't have $20, we'll give you Mayor Bloomberg's box number, and you can send it straight to him.
But yeah, so Spring-Heeled Jack, and he was later featured in comic books in like the 1970s. And
Like squaring off against Iron Man.
I'm not sure if it was.
They have a Batman Spring-Heel team-up comic.
Oh, that'd be great.
He currently has more superpowers than Batman, though. If he can jump really high.
But Batman needs somebody like that in his life that has got actual superpowers instead of being rich.
Right.
Yeah.
Well,
It was he was used as a vigilante superhero in, much like Batman, in the British comics, The Hornet and the Hotspur in the late 1970s and early 1980s. He was the hero in this series in specific. He was the Victorian era alter ego of a mild-mannered police clerk.
very nice.
Naturally.
Right.
Yeah.
Who had to contain his jumping abilities at parties and
Right.
other, social gatherings.
Yeah.
That's
Can't
ridiculous.
reach that thing on the shelf. Better jump into the ceiling.
So people were just like hanging out at home in London. Knock, knock, knock. Oh, who could this be? At the door. And it's a fucking devil who then breathes fire at them.
Yeah.
It's like, oh no, it's the Satan dragon again. And they're like, we gotta come up with a catchier nickname.
What
Look,
about
he jumped
Jack?
over that building. Yeah, what about Jack? This really happened.
Oh my god. That's amazing.
And you know what? You know what? It probably is it was some real dude who was really going around doing this.
Right.
And I don't know, had
Springs on his heels.
springs on his heel, like
Flubber.
right, he had moon boots before they were cool.
Moon shoes.
Yeah.
Right? What a
my
callback.
God. My childhood.
Wait, so he had an alter ego then, right?
In those
In
that
the
specific
comics.
In the
comic
comics,
series, yeah.
Well, I'm assuming he didn't have the damn horns in the comics then, because then it's another
Possibly not, yeah.
Superman like thing where the only thing that separates his face is the fact that he's not wearing
Well, he probably wears a
glasses.
false mustache too.
Oh,
There
yeah,
you go. That's all it takes.
But his alter ego wears the false mustache.
right. Because he's
And
a
the
cop.
glasses.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's got his cop aviators.
Right.
There was actually a movie in 2008 called Spring-Heeled Jack that was about Jack coming back to continue a killing spree in this particular movie. So this one wasn't a superhero
Spring-Heeled
movie.
Jack the Ripper.
Yeah, pretty much. And in this one he came back and to continue a killing spree in 2004 after a 100-year absence, and basically decides to go after this random teenager in that
ravage
particular movie.
Well,
and
yeah,
ravage
ravage
them,
them, yeah.
Gotta have the ravaging. That's a signature move. Besides the jumping.
Right. The fire, the jumping, and the ravaging.
But yeah, I'm not quite sure how he got to the title of superhero, but he certainly
It sounds
appears
like
to be the
a
first.
long and winding tale. At some point probably somebody was just like, but what if he wasn't a bad guy?
Yeah.
And then they
You
wrote
know.
this alternate universe Spring-Heeled Jack. And then actual Spring-Heeled Jack was probably like, oh man, I worked so hard for that reputation. They made me a good guy.
Well, somebody had to write their fan fiction, and then
It's true. It's true.
somebody said,
Don't
you know
discount
what?
a good
He
fanfic.
can't be all bad.
He's a villain with a heart of gold.
Oh, there you go. That's what it is. I'm not gonna lie. In my Google
Jesus, that looks
searching,
ridiculous.
right?
Looking
In my
at
Google
image.
searching, I have found something on DeviantArt,
Oh boy.
the famous DeviantArt. It is a death battle
Oh, no.
image of Spring-Heeled Jack versus Jack the Ripper.
Oh, please
Right?
show it to me.
Please share.
So the great thing is that
Oh my
Spring-Heeled
god,
Jack
it's like
just
Alien
looks-
versus Predator.
Right. It's very nice. Our listeners, if you want to go ahead and Google along
Yeah, just
with
give a
us,
quick Google search. Yeah.
just Spring-Heeled Jack will do it for you. You just scroll down a second, and you have this great little teaser. It's like Floyd versus Mayweather.
What kind of
Wait,
abs did
Floyd
they give
Mayweather
him?
versus Conor McGregor. There we go. That was.
Yeah, Floyd versus himself.
Right, a fantastic Jekyll and Hyde, you know.
Well, shout out to, what does that say? G-Odzilla.
Yeah.
Sure.
G-Odzilla.
That is their DeviantArt handle. So they're
Shout
not
out to
sponsoring
you.
this podcast, but
you can if you want.
But shout out to you, DeviantArt, or I don't know what they call
Deviant
themselves.
artist.
Deviant Artist? Yeah, I don't know why
As someone who has posted artwork to DeviantArt, I actually don't know.
Oh man.
Don't
So
look me
where
up.
all has this Spring Heel Jack, like where all has this been seen? Then it's just comic books, and then like he made a reappearance.
It seems like from looking at the Wikipedia page, it seems that he's actually like all over the place, like all over like pop culture and stuff, and just nobody knows who he is.
Well, I have found another thing that's interesting in my Google searching. Apparently in the hit Elder Scrolls Oblivion
What?
game, you can actually get the boots of Spring-Heeled Jack. That's amazing. With the
I played that.
right, yeah, we played it all the time.
Did you have those boots?
The description.
I don't remember.
The description of these boots once belonged to the infamous Spring-Heeled Jack. It is said that the wearer's athletic ability will become unmatched.
But yeah, like he's been featured in comics, audio drama, plays, literature, music,
Video
everything.
games.
Video games. Yeah.
That's amazing.
Is this big part of pop culture that I've never heard of before?
Yep.
Like, you know, like I pride myself on absorbing too much television, and and this is the first time I've ever heard of what is apparently like on the same level as like Jekyll and Hyde or like Frankenstein. This is like a big deal. He's been in everything, and I've never known about it till now.
The first superhero.
The first superhero, the first villain turned.
Right.
Yeah.
The first
air
Doc
quotes.
Ock.
There you go. Yeah. The first Loki.
Right.
The first, yeah.
What a trickster. All right. So I think that wraps up my story.
Okay.
Okay.
Well, Matt, we will turn it over to you, I suppose. What have you brought for us?
So it kind of parallels what we just talked about, but this
Okay.
is literally a guy in a costume.
Okay. Like, you're about to tell me about
A real
A dude,
life
like-
superhero.
oh boy.
The scene
Yep.
is set in Seattle,
Okay.
Washington, and we'll be talking about a man under the moniker Phoenix Jones. So Phoenix Jones was actually an MMA fighter named Ben Fodor, and he paraded around the streets of Seattle from 2010 to 2015.
Oh my god.
Looking for crime and like helping the homeless and other people who were in need, all dressed up in a superhero
Oh,
costume.
God. 5 years he did this.
5 straight
I mean,
years.
it's been a
Wow.
couple years evidently since he was active, but
Oh, of course, yeah. He did. He did retire after 2015. I guess the streets of Seattle were safe enough. But
Streets of Seattle.
or
Safe enough.
he was like, there's too many hipsters brewing like artisan coffee here. It's doomed.
right, yeah. Well, I mean, so many Starbucks
My apologies to our Seattle listeners
and our hipster listeners
and our hipster listeners.
and anyone who's a superhero.
And anybody who's a superhero, my apologies to Spring-Heeled Jack. Go on, Matthew.
So to date, in those 5 years of patrolling, Phoenix Jones made over 130 arrests, with proof for well over 50 of them. Jones carried
That's less than a 50%.
right.
like-
Well, that's all you can really find, like, you know, without digging a whole lot. I'm assuming I didn't do
suppose.
any of my own digging. I left that to the wonderful people over at ye old Wikipedia.
Oh, nice.
Right.
Wikipedia got a lot of use out of this episode.
They really did.
Yeah.
So shout out to Wikipedia.
They're also not sponsoring this podcast.
But they can if they want. So Jones carried around an arsenal of non-lethal weaponry and equipment, including pepper spray, a stun baton, a ballistic vest, and even a ballistic shield. He was known...
Where in the world... Oh, okay, hold on. So I don't know much about ballistics gear. Is that just available for people to purchase?
Probably.
That sounds like, I mean, he was, you said, a former MMA fighter.
Right.
They fight, like, basically naked.
Right.
So that's
Right.
not...
It's
That's
all
not
like
where he got it.
Yeah.
Like, it's not like he was former police or military.
Right.
Like, and he just had this flak jacket laying around. Like, can you just buy shit like this? You walk into a Dick's and they're like, hey, what can I help you with? And you're like, I'm trying to become a superhero. And they're like, oh,
America.
you're going to want aisle 17.
So, you actually can.
Okay.
So for just $1,020, you can buy a TAC Pro Level 2 bulletproof vest. I'm assuming that's the standard for high grade protection at this point.
I mean,
Back to
like,
school
okay,
year.
so that's not fair. I know why, because we live in America.
Right.
And everybody has a gun.
Well,
and you
it's
don't want to
the
get shot,
safest
so you
thing when
buy-
you're hunting bears.
Well, yeah, unless the bear gets a hold of the jacket, then you got
Armored bears.
armored bears.
Oh no! The bears, they're
Shout out
armed.
to, what was that, Whitest Kids You Know?
You're right. Now you've got, the bears raping your churches and burning your women. But yeah, so you can evidently buy ballistics grade, equipment. It is expensive, and
Well, not if you've become like a very successful MMA fighter like that.
While he is an MMA fighter, successful might be loose.
That's fair, because if he was successful, he wouldn't have quit to become a superhero.
Right, and he probably wouldn't have gone back to it after quitting being a superhero. And we'll get to that. We'll get to that. It is all part of the story. It is #all connected. So Jones led what was called in Seattle the Rain City superhero movement, which, yes,
There were more?
This was an organization composed of costumed activists, for lack of a better term,
Okay.
who would parade around fighting crime and other things, like they again, like Phoenix Jones would do. He would aid the homeless. There are pictures of him handing out flyers about what to look for in shady activity, what constitutes a criminal. There's pictures of him handing out like tacos to hungry homeless people. But there was a whole movement of people in Seattle at this time that he led. Witnesses reported that the group had intervened in crimes on numerous occasions, while maybe the police might have wished that they minded their own business.
Right.
Their thing was, they would rather have someone who was a sworn officer protecting the public rather
Instead
than
of
someone
some
with no...
dude wearing a ballistics jacket
Right.
calling himself a superhero.
No, I mean, he might have been able to kick some ass.
Well,
but...
that's fair. Yeah, he was an MMA fighter.
Right.
He could probably handle himself. He was probably more equipped than some.
Right. Well, they not only would they put themselves in the way of danger, they would also act as really good witnesses to certain crimes because they were right up close in front of it. And so in July, early on in this movement, July of 2011, local police recorded 10 citizens patrolling the city of Seattle in superhero costumes under the names Thorn, Buster Doe.
What?
Right? Green Reaper,
Okay.
the Mantis, Prodigy, Gemini, my favorite, No Name, Fantastic Cop Out, I love it,
I couldn't think of a better name, so I don't know. Put this one down as a placeholder for now, and then
right, and just
I'll think of
forgot
one
to change
later.
it. You
Right,
know, when he turned into
it's
superhero
stuck.
form.
Yeah.
There was also Thunder 88, Penelope, and Phoenix Jones. A few other members include Red Dragon, who is known for his samurai-looking attire and his large wooden sword.
Oh, he was a LARPer.
Pretty much.
Okay.
There was also Midnight Jack.
Cousin of Spring-Heeled Jack, I believe.
Right, yeah. I have to assume, they took inspiration. There's also Karma, Skyman, who I'm assuming could not actually fly.
No, I want him to fly. I want him to have a jetpack. I want that so bad.
Right. I think Skyman would be what I have in my head is I think it's who was it in Sky High? Kurt Russell.
Yeah.
The Superman
that's
Skyman.
as portrayed by Kurt Russell.
There's also your friendly neighborhood appropriation in El Caballero. And then,
okay.
Right, they also had someone who worked on intelligence and advocacy against domestic violence in, their quote, guy in the chair, Purple Rain, right?
Purple Rain.
And that's rain as in, a rain of terror and not, dark-colored rain.
It sounds more like Purple Rain as in I had to change the spelling so that I didn't get sued by Prince. Speaking of, I'm pretty sure some of their superhero names are, published comic book superhero names.
Pretty sure, yeah.
At least I know Mantis is...
Well, it's
Mantis was just in... Oh!
Right.
Okay.
So it's different. They're different.
All right.
The Mantis actually put out a pretty long video about his work with Phoenix Jones. It's actually really interesting if anybody wants to watch it on YouTube. You can try to just Google the Mantis and Phoenix Jones. It'll probably pop up. But he has a lot of video of their adventures, for lack of a better term.
Cool. So they were blogging their crime fighting.
Pretty much. It's kind of like Spider-Man. He's taking pictures of himself. They were
right, absolutely
taking video and giving that to J. Jonah Jameson
because
instead.
print media is dead.
Right. Well,
yeah.
So this group would help to stop, carjackings, stranded vehicles in different circumstances. They
imagine being in a stranded vehicle. It's late at night. You're off the highway. It's raining,
some asshole in a cape.
Some dude in a cape and mask lumbers up to your car. I'm sorry, but no,
right.
no.
That's why
let
I
the stranded
carry
cars
pepper spray.
or signal them with a flashlight. No, don't even do that. That's creepy. I immediately withdraw that up.
That might be slightly better if you see a face you recognize from the newspapers rather than just some stranger coming up and knocking.
That's fair.
Right,
it's
true.
This creepy little, scene of a ghost story. They got the flashlight straight up to their face.
He's at first trying to ask them if they need help in Morse code with the flashlight, but then they're like, I don't know Morse code, and so he just shines it right up into his face. But he's wearing it's like the Green Reaper or whatever you mentioned. So he's he looks like death, and they're like, Jesus God, no!
No, it's just me, your friendly neighborhood Phoenix Jones.
That's no, fuck that.
So despite the jokes and everything, they really did do a lot in Seattle at the time to help people. They did a lot of good. It seems like they did a lot of good, at least through what I've read. They did a lot to help people. There are cases of them chasing down sex offenders, carjackers.
To actually stopping crime.
Right, actually stopping crime. So, people could argue that they did do a service to Seattle. So, Ben Fodor the mantle of Phoenix Jones, right? He took it on in 2010 after he and his oldest son were walking back to his car after spending the day at the Wild Waves amusement park, which I'm assuming is near Seattle. They noticed from afar that in their car, like the back window had been smashed out, and they ran to investigate the situation. Looking back on it, running might not have been the best solution because Fodor's son slipped on the glass and cut his knee very, very badly. So badly, actually, that blood had actually, poured out onto the side of the car.
Oh, God.
That'll be a little bit more important later. But, so Fodor was begging those around him to call for help, and nobody responded, and people had apparently witnessed the break-in, and nobody had done anything about it. And just a few weeks after that, Fodor was at a nightclub with one of his friends, and walked into the room to find him being assaulted. And so Fodor took it upon himself to chase after these guys, and while trying to, intercept the assailants, they had thrown a ski mask into a couple of bushes, and after, failing to catch them, Fodor had walked back to the club and found this ski mask, and at that point he realized apparently what he needed to do, which was put on his own mask and start,
Naturally, that's the conclusion I would jump to.
It's the progression, friend or son gets hurt, friend gets beat up, Superman.
Yeah.
Right.
I mean, I love comics as much as the next guy. And, of course, every kid, when you're growing up, you want to be a superhero. You want to be Spider-Man. You want to be, I want to be Superman when I grow up. But here's the thing, though, is that, and at least he, like we said, he's got MMA training, so, at least he can handle himself physically, but
oh, there are videos of him online kicking ass, man.
But you don't have superpowers. You can't. You can stop a speeding bullet with your face, and then you die. That's it.
You can stop one speeding bullet.
You can stop one speeding bullet one time. Make it a good one. You have no superpowers. The costumes are cool, though. I'll give them that.
Right, yes.
The costumes are pretty sweet.
You can find these all online. The costumes are actually legitimate. Well, for a few of these. The Mantis, he actually talks about what his costume was in his little documentary. I'll call it a documentary. But he literally wore a hoodie. That was about it. It was green. And he heat pressed a symbol onto it.
He did it in his mom's garage.
Right, yeah.
There's a loft in there. That's where he lives.
Right. But yeah, no, the costumes are actually really cool. And there were campaigns that Phoenix Jones, not as Ben Fodor, but Phoenix Jones, had campaigned through his fan base. Yes, he had a fan base in Seattle. They had donated a bunch of money, and that's how he was able to build this costume. I'm not so sure on the other members of the Rain City superhero movement, but there was a lot of people just parading around in these super advanced costumes. And again, a lot of them are really cool, so I would encourage people to look those up.
Just start a Kickstarter, and you can become a superhero in no time, I guess.
Right. Nonetheless, Fodor decided that he needed to become something more than himself. He needed to become Phoenix Jones, a real superhero. And so it's funny we're talking about the costumes. His first costume actually consisted of a set of long johns from a local convenience store worn under a pair of compression shorts that he had handy from his MMA fighting days.
Right.
He had cut an old sock to fit over his face as a mask.
Oh my... that's stupid. I'm glad he upgraded to the ballistics jacket.
Yeah, this was a much less safe costume.
Yeah. You get stabbed at, that's going to go right through. It's going to cut your jammies.
He had a cape, but the cape was from like a Halloween costume that his son had worn. So,
oh my god, so it was like real short.
It was real short.
Oh god.
And to make things even worse, worse, he wore a fedora.
Oh my god.
Right. So that was his first costume.
And his first moniker was Nice Guy.
Right, yeah. Phoenix Majones. So he drove his actual car to different locations.
He didn't have a Phoenix mobile?
He didn't have a Phoenix Jones copter, or there was no speeder bike. He
Quickly
drove
to the Jones jet.
his Honda Civic, or some normal guy car. That's the first thing I think of.
It's a Honda Civic.
Right.
2003,
But
slight dent in the fender.
He colored it with a Sharpie, But the important thing is that he never washed the side of it where his son's blood was.
Why?
Right?
What happens when it rains? It rains. It's called the Rain City.
Well, when it rains,
probably.
it pours. I don't know. But he said it was supposed to be as much of a reminder of why he started, fighting crime. Every time he'd see it, he'd see his son's blood and realize that the streets were not safe. And that's why over time he improved his costumes and, had a large amount of people backing him to become a vigilante. His fan base, again, would donate to him to, improve his costume. And eventually, he came to that black and yellow, staple in Seattle at the time. He, complete with a stab shield and dragon skin brand bulletproof vest. He's been quoted to say that it's saved him on numerous occasions.
Well, sure.
Right, yeah. It
better than his Long Johns ever did.
Absolutely not. You get stabbed through the stab shield, he doesn't even feel it. You get stabbed through the Long Johns, you're in the ER for, however long.
Ever.
Yeah. Always. Out of commission. You're not a superhero anymore. So a little bit of the coverage by the press. On Sunday, January 2nd, in 2011, Phoenix Jones stopped and chased away a car thief, uniform and all, as the car owner stood by in shock. CBS News actually ran a story about this because it was, the first time they'd ever seen anything this kind
ridiculous.
Of crazy, right? And they introduced the man to Phoenix Jones the following evening, only being referred to as Dan, but, whatever. On Saturday, September 24th in 2011, Phoenix Jones doused a man with pepper spray after he attempted to steal a bus.
Just a whole bus.
A whole bus.
I need this bus. I have a dentist appointment now.
I can only assume that it was the first step in the Joker's plan to rob a bank. You gotta have the bus to drive into the place.
Right.
So the driver of the bus had actually been outside handing out flyers when another individual attempted to steal the bus. Jones apparently intervened and the hijacker escaped, but his skin was dyed bright orange due to the pepper spray. So Jones was spraying
Pepper
him with...
spray does that?
I guess so.
It sounds like more like you had a can of orange spray paint.
It's one way to get a spray tan.
Right, yeah, seriously. It's cheap, free.
Yeah.
The price of maybe...
All you gotta do is attempt to steal a bus in Seattle between the years of 2011 and 2015.
Right.
It's cheap, it's easy, it's free.
Right, and it stays there forever. I don't know. But there was, in that incident, there was no help from the Seattle police. They even took hours to even respond to the 911 call. Further, pleading Jones's case for action. In October of 2011, Jones was arrested for his role in an altercation involving pepper spray. People there reported that Phoenix Jones broke up an unfair fight between two groups of nightclub patrons. But according to the police reports, officers determined that there was no fight.
It's just they were just outside smoking a cigarette.
Right. And
look off in the distance. Who the fuck is this guy in the black and gold? I don't
even know. Yeah. But according to one woman who was involved in the altercation, after an argument had broken out between her group and another, Jones suddenly approached and pepper sprayed them, saying, "I am a superhero." The next day, there was a video posted online by a man named Ryan McNamee showing the woman hitting Jones and another person with her favored weapon, her shoe. And Jones was arrested again and released on bail hours later with no charges having been filed. In another incident, Phoenix Jones had come to the defense of a potential fight victim. Police arrived after the aggressors had fled, but in their police report, they called it a case of, again, the questionable use of pepper spray.
His weapon of choice.
His weapon of choice. It's like Batman's batarangs. Phoenix Jones has his Phoenix spray, because it leaves you, burning through your eyes, apparently, and orange. The victim later told the Seattle Times, though, that Jones is indeed a hero because he had saved him from a potential beatdown. Right?
I was about to get my ass whooped.
In November of 2011, Phoenix Jones had followed a man who had been accused of stabbing someone. They prevented the attacker from fleeing until the Seattle police arrived. That's part of the video you can find on the Mantis, the documentary he posted on YouTube. In May of 2012, a blogger reported that Phoenix Jones had pepper sprayed Black Bloc protesters in downtown Seattle, although Jones had denied it on Twitter. In an interview on the Bob Rivers show on May 2nd, Phoenix Jones asserted that while undercover with the protesters, doing some real detective work, several of them had revealed to him a plot to bomb the city courthouse. And according to Phoenix Jones, after telling the police and receiving absolutely no support whatsoever, he and another member of the Rain City superhero movement intercepted the protesters at the courthouse and acted in self-defense as the protesters began throwing rocks and bottles through the windows and glass doors of the courthouse.
So, but wait, the protesters had an actual bomb?
It doesn't tell me in the story whether or not they actually had the bomb, but they were there and they were vandalizing the courthouse.
Right.
So I can only assume they were trying to break in if they did have the bomb.
In order to plant the bomb.
And put it in somewhere that, it's just wasn't going to blow up a hole in the outside. They're going to,
right. They were going to take the whole corrupt fucking temple down, yeah.
A dynasty that is crippled by its enemies, it can rebuild, but one that falls from within, that's dead. That's dead forever. To quote Baron Zemo. But eventually in 2014, Phoenix Jones officially declared that the Rain City superhero movement was over. He would be active for a little while longer than that, but he eventually wound down. After hanging up the suit, Ben Fodor returned to the amateur arena of mixed martial arts, this time under the name Phoenix Jones.
So right. he took his superhero moniker and he's like, that'll make a great MMA name.
Right.
All right. Yeah.
So the real life superhero movement still exists.
Okay.
Alongside their unofficial spokesperson Peter Tangin, who boasts that he knows over 100 superheroes worldwide. You can actually find their webpage. They have a superhero webpage at www.reallifesuperheroes.com.
Okay. So, but I imagine this is more the people that we were talking about at the beginning, where it's like they're in their long johns, right?
Actually, some of them have some really, really cool outfits. They really do. And actually, if you go on their website, they have a gallery of people, and they have a photographer.
God. Like, imagine that guy. Imagine there's a guy on here, his name is Phantom Zero, and he looks like Skeletor. And it's like, imagine if that's the guy who knocks on your car window when you're stranded on the side of the highway, and he's like, "Do you need some help? I can get that car out of that ditch for you."
Right. So, like, the costumes,
I imagine that's how he speaks.
They're very, very put together. They really are. And they have a photographer who puts them in, like, a movie poster almost. They'll take them out for a photo shoot and really spruce these things up. They look really cool, actually.
From the studio that brought you The Mantis and Phoenix Jones,
we present you Mr. Extreme and Master Legend. I like that. Fuck Master Chief.
What is this Deadpool Spider-Man blatant knockoff?
The vigilante spider.
The vigilante spider. Are they trying to get sued?
Oh my god. Well, then you have the Crimson Fist. If you're a fan of the Fairly Odd Parents, we know about the Crimson Chin.
Oh yeah, that's true.
I guess there's you've got Zeta Man. I almost read that as Zeta Male at first. I'm like, wow,
he's definitely not an alpha.
But again, like, there are some really cool costumes on this website. Most of these heroes, though, they were more on the side of helping people in non-crime related incidents.
Okay.
Like, instead of,
like helping old ladies cross the street.
Right, yeah. You've got the guys who are bringing the food to the homeless, and
a couple of 7-year-olds that are also...
Oh, God.
They're
building an army.
One is wearing, like, just a Halloween, like, dollar store Batman mask, like a Nightwing mask.
Oh, that's great. There's someone just by the name of Z.
Okay, so they're like soup kitchen superheroes.
Right, yeah. So while they're not, like, superheroes, they're still doing hero work.
Right.
They're not beating up bad guys.
They're like Steve Buscemi in a costume.
They're like Steve Buscemi in a costume. All Steve Buscemi needed was a mask, and he was a superhero.
Right?
Yeah. I think Master Legend is my favorite right now. He kind of looks like... Oh, that's a shoe. I thought that was the front of his costume. Okay. It's the poster is very deceiving. He's doing a kick, so his foot is closer to the camera than anything else.
Ah, I see.
Kind of looks like someone who would work at a donut shop.
This is super weird.
Kind of guy.
Like, I love comic books, but, like, this is a little weird.
Where do I sign up?
Right, yeah, seriously. We have to register ourselves as superheroes right now.
There's probably an application on the page.
There is a Connect tab.
Like One Punch Man.
Do you say that you're going to be the next One Punch Man?
No, a test like in One Punch Man. Yes.
Oh, yeah,
Right.
yeah, a superhero test.
Yeah.
Right. Multiple choice or fill in the blank. I don't know.
There's the right man for this one.
Oh, man. If you want some entertainment for later, there is a comment section
Oh,
on the
buddy.
website of some people.
We could do a whole episode just reading those comments.
Yeah.
That's...
Next podcast, comment section.
Well,
right.
so that was anti-fiction. Those were weird fucking stories, you guys.
They were beautiful.
I loved every second of this. Listeners, thank you very much for listening. And if you have thoughts or comments, or you have suggestions for stories or themes, or if you just want to yell at us, we are on Twitter at antifictioncast. You can also email us at antifictioncast@gmail.com. Well, thank you guys for being on the show today.
Thank you for having me.
And we'll see you next week.